So Israel-Hamas conflict has created immediate problems for IMEC, but seems to have opened the doors to Chabahar. Is Iran using India as a hedging option against the US sanction, or India is taking a role in playing a peacemaker in the region? Iran enjoys Chinese support, and China played a peacemaker between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Should USA let India-Iran relationship to grow as a counterweight to China? Over to you, sir.
Well, it's a very important question, but since you mentioned about the IMEC, we must understand that connectivity is an extremely important requirement for any kind of a trade or even investments. And a continuity and a safe passages are extremely important. And the countries have always been looking for shorter, smarter routes. And therefore, whether it is IMEC, whether it is INSTC, or other eastern corridors that India has been developing, or for that matter, the Chinese BRI, they are all essentially aimed at connecting for their own advantage and for the basically increasing trade and connectivity. And India, as you know, was connected by land prior to the independence. That was like we could have Afghanistan, Central Asia, which are extremely important from India's point of view. But that physical connectivity are lost. And then we became basically dependent on through Pakistan, or for that matter, Bandar Abbas in Iran. So since 2000, we have seen that India has been working on these projects. I was in Moscow at the time when we signed the INSTC agreement with Iran and Russia, basically trying to connectivity to Europe through this. At that time, we did not have those kind of sanctions that we are seeing today, which have continuously to increase by the US, especially the unilateral sanctions by the United States. So sometimes these are part of the geopolitics and geoeconomics. On the other hand, sometimes they are part of the geopolitical wars that are conducted, what we are witnessing today in Israel, between Israel and Hamas for that matter. Now, those all have a direct impact on connectivity in one way or the other, because you have to pass through various areas. Now, in this particular case, when we are looking at INSTC, it is sanctions on Russia and Iran. Both are very heavily sanctioned countries by United States. India does not recognize unilateral sanctions. But the private companies, obviously, which have greater exposure in the West, are more concerned about it. And that indicates why many of these have not taken off. Now, this Chabahar Port project has been in the offing since 2002. It was offered to us in 2002 during the visit of President Khatami to India. 2003, we started talking. In 2015, we signed an agreement. And 2016, when Prime Minister Modi went to Iran, at that time, there was this agreement for 10 years was signed. But it could not proceed because in 2018, we had seen President Trump came and he just withdrew from the JCPOA, which is a nuclear agreement, and started imposing greater sanctions on us. With great difficulty, we were able to get waivers for Chabahar Port in view of Afghanistan. But by 2021, again, the situation changed because the United States withdrew from there, and therefore it was in no mood to allow any further connectivity with that. But for India, it became extremely important. And its importance, strategic importance, does not go away. We have, firstly, Iran is a very major partner. We were importing about 11 to 12% of our oil from Iran. For our connectivity, Afghanistan, Central Asia, as you mentioned also, is very, very important. So we continue to work on that. Now we started working on the G20, which on the back of G20, we had the signing of agreement between various countries for India, Europe, Middle East Economic Corridor, which was supported by the United States. This is an alternate route. It is not a route which was basically going to replace any. But you need to have many options open. But with the Israel-Hamas war, we are looking at it. This is the situation. Now, China. China is a very major factor in the whole of West Asia, and as far as India is concerned, in every geography. So, China-Pakistan economic corridor, which India does not subscribe to, which has been opposing it because of the sovereignty issues, because of the transparency issues. But they are real problems, real issues. Therefore, it is important that we continue to have a longer term perspectives as far as these connectivity corridors are concerned. And so they are extremely important strategically and for our trade as India wishes to grow and be a part of the global value supply chains.
Okay. But what about the US part, sir? Do you think that they should let India develop a deeper relation with Iran? We once upon a time we used to import a lot of crude from Iran, but we had to cut it down because of the sanctions. So
Yes,
should
you are
there?
right. Yeah, you are right, absolutely. But it is United States considers the world as its chessboard. Let's be very clear about it. But countries like India, which are also emerging powers, we need to look at our own national interest as well. Why should everything be predicated on a country's whims and fancies? If United States considers India as its global comprehensive strategic partner and a very important partner in its policy towards China, then I think they will need to consider where India is going. They have understood the port's relevance, but just today, because they are no longer that engaged in Afghanistan, it does not mean that they start completely finishing the project altogether or try to, put a nose on it. So I think that we'll have to discuss with them. Of course, the initial reaction of the was in keeping with their policy of that we do have sanctions, we'll impose those sanctions, we'll do them. But then there have to be ways have to be found exactly what to do. Now, knowing it all too well that India has gone ahead and signed this 10-year agreement, which was supposed to be actually part of the 2016 agreement which Prime Minister Modi had signed in Iran. So it is just a culmination of that. It is not something very new, but why it is required? It is required because when you have only 1 year a management contract of a port, then it does not give confidence to the companies to invest because then there is no continuity. Tomorrow, they can after 11 months, you start either scrambling once again for it. So longer term connectivity, longer term management of the project gives you that heft, and which is being seen now in the increasing trade and investment that is taking place. This time they have already got about $370 million have been arranged for this. So I believe that the IPGL and others, which the companies which are there, and the once we have the direct service to Chabahar, it will be beneficial for everybody.